What's your take on organized religion?
Can you define that?
Can you define that?
I'm not even sure what organized religion is.
It's organized religion. It's basically
like Christianity, Judaism, just any of those?
Any of it. Anything that's organized that we are told to be conditioned to believe in certain things without having the constructs or the confines to make up our minds for ourselves.
I'm not sure. I don't really have an opinion on it yet. I feel like I've dabbled in Christianity a bit, but I don't know enough to really fully say an opinion on it.
Do you commit or
No.
devote yourself to a specific line of teachings or set of values or morals or ethos or values that you instill based off of a specific sublet of religion?
No. I follow my values and morals that I have for myself, but I don't base it off of any religious component.
Do you believe in heaven?
Yes.
Do you believe in hell?
Okay, I actually wanted to, I was thinking about this the other day because after we had a conversation, I was thinking about religion as a whole and just, the afterlife and how people pass and just everything that goes along with like prayer and death.
Did you ever think of that before we had that conversation?
Yeah,
Was
yeah.
that like a main, okay.
No, all the time. And I find that what I struggle with the most that some people find.
What's your take on heaven and hell?
I don't have much of an opinion on it yet. I haven't really formulated my religious base.
But why does heaven and hell automatically relate to religion?
Because I'm not sure yet about the afterlife and kind of what happens after death.
What do you want to happen after death?
I think what's bugged me the most about it is the concept of being alive forever once you're in heaven, like eternity, and there not being an end. Like, I feel like our brains can't conceptualize that, and it almost puts me into more of a panic than a feeling of ease.
But
no,
why?
because I overthink what do you mean there is no end? And then I start to really dive deep into what that looks like, and I just don't think our brain
But what if it's not
really-
about actually having the brain justify having no end? What if it's just about merging back into where you belong? What if this isn't about going there and meeting all of your ancestors and talking to animals and giraffes and dogs that have passed away? What if you were just merging back with the essence of the Creator? You're going back home. There's like a biblical text that says the prodigal son remembered who his father was and returned home. It's a big thing, right? So, and I know you're probably not biblically inclined, I assume.
No, I've never read the Bible.
Okay, which is fine, okay? But what I'm getting at is what if this isn't about some majestic afterlife where it's this never-ending feedback loop of a hamster on a wheel of just forever living?
That's how I feel.
But what if it's not that?
And it could...
What if it's just peace?
Yes, and it very well might be that. But what I'm saying is the concept alone of eternity has been something that has provoked more fear in me than peace. Because, like I said, my brain, just when I'm thinking of it, just can't really fathom the fact of no ending in sight, right?
Do you believe in hell then?
I don't know, because I know in a lot of religious teachings that, if, for example, Christianity, if you do accept Christ, then all of your sins are forgiven and then you will go to heaven. So I don't know, where is the line of going to hell then if you do accept Christ before you die? And let's just say if you did engage in devious acts throughout your human life and you don't accept Christ before you die, does that mean you immediately go to hell?
Okay, but what is hell to you is my question. Have you thought about that?
No.
Ever?
Never.
Do you believe that it's some burning place in this different type of realm where people for eternity are meant to just relive the suffering of their sins over and over?
It could be. I mean, it could look like being put on earth again and kind of...
Reincarnation.
Yeah. I'm not really sure.
What do you think the purpose of human life is then?
Ooh. I don't know. So, I mean, I don't know. I think it's interesting because from my psychological background, psychology was founded from science, like a base of the scientific method.
Okay.
So a lot of the times, like when you look back in history of psychology and kind of the principles of it, back in the 17th and 16th century, prior to this school of thought being formulated, all they answered to was the church. All these philosophers, who even believed in religion, I mean, most of it was through speculation and, through them kind of teaching, any of their practices and readings and passing them down. So when psychology started to formulate, it kind of brought on a whole nother meaning of what religion and the church really means, because now people weren't answering to speculation and intuition, but they were going based off of scientific data through observation. And like the evolutionary theory.
Okay, well, what do you think is
of
more
Darwinism? But what I'm getting at is through the evolutionary theory and Darwinism and functionalism, they found that, we are very closely similar to animals and, survival of the fittest, all of these different forms. So I find that it becomes confusing for me because in the field that I'm in and the teachings and the basis that we were derived from this whole school of thought just kind of contradicts a little bit religion as a whole, if that makes sense.
But it contradicts organized religion as a whole, which again is that sublet that's mandated onto us to have a conditioned thought process and mindset that's taught to us with no other outlet, rhyme, reason, and we should not question what is in front of us.
So can I ask you something?
Yes.
So Charles Darwin, I'm sure most people do know of him. He found like the evolutionary theory. And
do you believe in that?
Well, I want to ask you a question.
Okay.
His uncle had probed that every species adapts to their environment and they grow and they thrive, based off of the fittest adaptation, right? However, he stated that every animal person on this earth was placed here by God. However,
Correct.
God had a hands-off approach where he put us all on here, but any adaptation, any scientific, component that occurs here is going to happen that he does not interfere with.
But do you
believe that?
Are you asking me if I believe that God injected some level of his essence into the primordial state of primates, which then conditioned us to become what we are now? What are you asking me?
I'm asking you, do you believe in the evolutionary theory?
Of Darwinism? Absolutely not. It's not possible.
Okay.
It's not. Darwinism, that whole theory cannot exist by any stretch or state of the imagination. One, we still have all of those same primates, which makes me question, why are we here then? Secondly, it doesn't make sense how quickly us as mammals have formed if we did come from those primates, which I believe we The theory I'm going to get into is very wild because, again, it's a theory. It's not my fact.
Okay.
But because I don't believe in Darwinism, what I believe in is two things. It's either a stoned ape theory.
Okay, explain that.
Stoned ape theory is basically a bunch of chimpanzees were eating mushrooms. That's like a real theory. And what happens is it exploded their level of consciousness. And it allowed them to start thinking, creating, and navigating for themselves. I happen to like that because obviously I am a mushroom connoisseur.
Okay.
But I also do believe in the injection of an ethereal, omnipresent being, whether it is AKA God or some Anunnaki alien-based species that has come down here and actually dispersed amongst the primate, application and fornicated. But that's where I believe we came from. I don't believe in Darwinism at all.
So you don't
whatsoever.
believe survival of the fittest?
I believe in survival of the fittest now, and I believe it absolutely exists in all of nature. But when you look at the evolution theory of Darwinism, okay, and how we evolved from primates to cavemen to now, it skips hundreds of millions of years of scientific data where it would have taken us eons and eons and eons and eons to get to where we are now. The evolution process was so unbelievably sped up for us to become human. No one can tell me that that was not by some level of divine intervention. And again, whether it's some different level of otherworldly beings or God in essence, and what is God? Like that we'll get into that later, okay? But that's what I believe in.
Well, more natural selection too is what I'm focusing on. Do you believe that we adapt to our environment and we change based off of, the resources that we have? Because this is observed even in birds and in mammals and in all species.
I do believe in adaptation, 100%.
Yeah.
But I don't think that that's how we came to be.
Okay.
By any means.
So I was more talking natural selection and in terms of like adaptation and things of that sort.
Yes, I'm
100%. I know I said evolutionary theory, and that is mainly how Darwin is known.
Correct. Adaptation, I completely agree with.
Okay.
You do adapt to your environment, you improvise, you overcome. That I completely understand.
So now, with that being said, if we both agree on adaptation, does God interfere with that and survival of the fittest? And if he sees a weaker group, let's just say, really struggling or about to become extinct, what is then, based off a religious, perspective, what is God's like interjection with that? Does he interject with it? If the human species were about to become extinct, would he interfere with it?
Would he? I don't know. Maybe, maybe not.
In the religious
but what is God? But my question to you is, what is God then?
Right.
No, I'm asking you, what is God?
Well, a higher power.
Okay. So let me ask you a question.
And it's hard for me to answer these questions though, because I don't really have a religious background.
But this is what I want to get across, right? Not that I want to cut you off, and I apologize.
No,
this
okay.
isn't about religion.
Right.
My question is completely outside of the realm of what we look at as religion. I don't do religion. I don't like religion. I think religion is the root of all evil. It's the cause of why there's so much separation in this world. That is really how I feel. But the thing is, I'm asking you, what is God? So you said a higher power, right? Or simply, I don't know. My question then next would be, are you God? Or my God?
No.
Why?
Well, because I think that God empowers something that is well above what any human has the capability to be able to do. I think that it's a force field. I think that it's
okay, but you have heard the saying.
Unexplainable.
But you have heard the saying that we are made in the image of God, right?
Yes.
Okay, so if we're made in the image of God, then we in essence have to be a God. Yes or no? You see, it's not the problem with religion, right? Do you mind if I go on a little bit of a rant?
Yeah, because I want to say something too about religion.
The problem with religion is this. Religion teaches us that we are separate from God. God is here, I am here. That in and of itself is blasphemous. That if you go into Christianity and Catholicism, I have to either bathe myself in a new pool and I have to expunge myself of all of my sins, talk to a priest, and only through the priest or the pastors am I allowed then to have a connection with God. That is not the teachings of Yeshua. If you don't know who Yeshua is, it's Jesus. So Jesus was not the original Christ. There have been many Christs. Christ is a conscience, which I will get into later. But the whole point that I'm making is when I ask if you're a God, you have a teaching from Jesus. Jesus made a famous quote, and again, I'm a little bit biblical. He says, the kingdom of heaven will not come from expectation. You will not see here, there, nor here. It is within. So he has basically told us that the kingdom of heaven is all inside of ourselves, that we are God's. The reason why he wound up being killed, because I don't believe that he was sacrificed, and we'll get into that also. The reason why he was killed is when people are terrible, and because he tried to make people that were blindly following wake up, and he was preaching to his fellow man that we are all gods in our own nature, all divine creators, all one in essence. So when I say I am God, you're God, Jay is God, everyone else that we know, we're all part of the one collective. So when I ask what is God to you, it's oneness. It's wholeness, it's being. It's this evolutionary expansion of just continuous vastness that interconnects and intermingles all of us into one being. That's what I think God is. Mm-hmm. So I will ask you again, hearing that, right?
Okay.
If I ask you, are you God? If you're made in the image of God, and you know that the whole purpose of religion is to separate us from God and have all these different panels to go through in order to connect to him, can you actually just be one with God by being yourself, which ultimately makes you God? Does that make sense?
Kind of. I think that it's a very complex ideology just in general.
Right.
I think that a person really needs to understand where they stand and how they feel about it to really have an opinion and formulate, you know, their perspective, because it is really challenging. Even with me sitting here with you, you know, I haven't really dive deep into religion as a whole or where I stand. That's not to say I'm an atheist, because I don't believe that I am, you know, on that end. And again, if someone is, you know, I'm not saying there's like a right or wrong to any form of religion that's practiced, but it's difficult for me to truly answer these questions because of the stance where I'm not sure where I fall. And like I said earlier, with psychology, it's contradictory. You know what I mean? Some of the practices and where then religion falls. And what I find, a lot of people are definitely in my position, especially in this generation of not really knowing. I think a lot of people are more spiritual. They believe in something, they just don't know what it is. But like you said, religion definitely does feel like it puts you in a box, and there has been a lot of discrimination amongst it that a lot of people don't really want to talk about. But what I find can be the most challenging with religion is a lot of the values and the principles that religion follows. A lot of the followers engage in behaviors that may be harmful, such as verbal abuse, physical abuse,
Sexual abuse.
And then will state that they are actively practicing religion, which does not follow the moral teachings that that community, you know, has. So I think that it could become very contradictory to an outsider looking in, because it makes people feel like religion may be a justification or a way to overlook those harmful behaviors, as opposed to using it in a way of self-improvement.
100%.
So that's where I struggle, because I see a lot of people who actively practice, but in their day-to-day really elicit negative behaviors. And it makes sometimes people feel hesitant to really want to get involved with the community or really fully understand what it was meant to be.
So I have a question.
Yeah.
So you obviously know who Jesus is, correct?
Yes.
Okay. So do you view his teachings as religious, or do you view them as a way of life? Do you know his teachings by any chance?
Yeah, I think that I would view them more as a way of life.
Correct.
I don't view them as a religious base.
And they're not supposed to be.
Yeah.
Right? So what I think has happened is, after Yeshua's death, he used to preach gratitude, unconditional love, selflessness, kindness, oneness, wholeness.
Generosity.
Generosity was a big thing, okay? Compassion, empathy, joy, all of these qualities.
Love thy neighbor.
Love thy neighbor, okay? Yeah, I get that. So like all of these qualities have now been transmuted into this religious aspect of Christianity, of Catholicism. And I absolutely agree with you that even after his death, right, it took 1,000 years to write the Bible. The Bible was written by people. So it does not dictate the exact stories nor teachings, and it's things that have been passed down and passed down and passed down, and you have people's injection of their own ideologies and their own words and their own perceptions and their own perspectives into that Bible, right?
Right.
That's why I don't do religion. So,
which could be distorted too, right?
But that's part of the problem, right? So it can be distorted. You have these stories within the Bible, like the King James Version, that is about like having slaves, for example. Okay? Unacceptable. Where did that come from? Right. You know, that's not an equal partnership amongst your fellow man.
No, that was a bias
created
based off what was like the norm back
superimposed
then.
By people. So my question to you then, it's not religion, right, that you and I are then focused on right now. You and I would be more leaning towards the root of spirituality. Yes. Of oneness, of wholeness, of just of being, of co-creating, right?
Yeah.
So do you believe in like a universal collective? And what I mean by that is, if, you know, you jump into an ocean, right? And you're picking up water in your hands. Are you looking at each droplet of water as an individual part of the ocean, or are you just in the ocean? Because the way that I look at it is we are the water within the ocean. The human collective is the ocean. We're all one and the same. So that's my understanding of what we are under the teachings of Yeshua. So my question to you would be, do you feel that we are part of some giant interconnected, commingled, woven fabric weaving in and out of each other's lives, or that we are separate from one another?
No, I definitely think that we're weaving into each other's lives.
So we're connected. So
yes,
you believe
we are
all
connected.
humans are connected.
We are connected. And there was this movie years ago, and I'm forgetting the name of it, where it followed like 10 people's lives and kind of the steps of their day, and just showed how so many little things accumulate and were the same within those 10 people's days. Mm-hmm. And they passed one another, they were integrated, and they didn't even realize or recognize, because sometimes it could be to such a minuscule degree, but everything makes it different, right? Even when they say if you left 30 minutes too late, you could have missed like that car accident, or, you know, you have that burnt toast, you were late to work, you missed, you know, another, like a different, you know, catastrophic event. Whatever the case may be, I think that everything is very interconnected, and I think that one person's actions can definitely affect another's in terms of that like domino effect, for sure. But it's very interesting.
So, if we're connected, right? If we're in this woven fabric of reality where you and I are technically all one and the same, does that mean then that you and I are one and the same under the guise of God, or that universal, ethereal, omnipresent?
I can't speak to that because I don't know where I'm at. So like, even though we're talking about all of this, again, formulating an opinion on that is really hard at the moment, because, you know, when you say, yes, we're all one and the same, I do think that, you know, everyone's lives is affected by someone else and their actions, for sure. But when you look at the psychological component to it as well, there's all these different mechanisms and ways that we operate in terms of different environmental components that create the difference between all of us.
Do you think that being a psychologist pulls you out of the realm of being able to fully tap into your spiritual sense? Because you look at it more from a scientific and pragmatic sense rather than an actual soulful, spiritual, energetic synchronicity sense?
No, because I think there's a lot of psychologists who practice like religion, or they're spiritual, like many. I know so many of them. But I think that they've tapped into it. For me, I just haven't tapped into it yet.
What's prevented you? I'm asking. Why are you giggling?
Because I feel like this is a very lame excuse, but
there's no lame
I've
excuse.
just kind of been going through the motions of my own life, that it's just like gotten the best of me, and I haven't really set time to practice and see and study, you know, where I'm at with this. Mm-hmm. So it's more of just me not making the time for it, which I know that I should, and I know that I definitely have been interested and intrigued in it. I also don't know where to start. I don't know. It just seems very overwhelming for me.
Does the thought of that never-ending feedback loop of a hamster on a wheel of just eternity, is that kind of what keeps you, in a sense, distant from wanting to engage in it?
No, I just feel at the end of the day, kind of how I practice life is I want to treat others how I would want to be treated. And I find that connection for me has led me to a higher sense of fulfillment. Mm-hmm. And that's been very gratifying. And that's been enough for me to kind of sustain, you know, where I'm at and feeling happy. Mm-hmm. And you know, I think that life as a whole is all about connection. I think it's about all of the teachings that you named before: kindness, generosity, giving back, compassion,
love,
right? Love. And I just feel that if I'm immersed with that and giving it to others, then that's really my purpose and what I'm here for.
So you feel that you're in a sense of almost of servitude?
Yeah. So to me, I'm like, maybe I am practicing.
So that's okay.
Without,
so I'm glad
without knowing.
That's exactly what I was getting to.
I don't know.
My question to you, or my statement to you, was it seems, especially in the field that you're in of psychology, your purpose on this world, okay, is to literally help and assist those around you, correct?
Yeah,
Your
and
job is to heal.
Yes, and I
you
love it.
doing
And
it.
I don't get anything out of it.
What do you feel when you do it?
I just feel a sense of calm and peace.
And what do you think that calm and sense of peace is?
I think it's just me connecting
To?
to others.
But if
And
you're all
into-
interconnected, right?
Right.
Okay. We're all interconnected, and we're all connected to something greater, you said then, correct?
Right.
Because you said that we're connected to something greater than ourselves, right?
I do, yes.
Okay, so what you're telling me then, and correct me if I'm wrong, is that your purpose on this planet is of servitude, to give, to love, to heal, to mend the mind, body, spirit, and soul of other individuals,
Yes.
to connect.
Yes.
Okay. You have a love and an affinity for it, correct?
Mm-hmm.
Okay. Sense of fulfillment,
Yes.
joy,
Yes.
passion,
Yes.
abundance.
Yes.
Okay. You feel connected to them?
I do.
So, and you believe that we're all interconnected.
I do.
But you also believe that this interconnected web also connects us to something greater than ourselves, right?
Yes.
So I will ask you again, what are you connecting to then when you're connecting to them?
I'm connecting to everyone as a whole in the higher power.
That's it. So you're already practicing everything you need out of life. So I think you subconsciously have already tapped into your spiritual sense, or you're practicing, okay, you're practicing of that heaven within, right?
And I want to pause because I think this is important for us to talk about, because me being so knowledgeable and competent in the field that I'm in and successful still struggles with, even within this conversation and this podcast, really knowing that spiritual realm. So this is important for everyone to listen to, because many people probably struggle with this, to really identify, like, what really is it for me to be spiritual? Am I being spiritual without even recognizing it, like that unconscious? So it's important that even though I'm struggling with these questions,
But I don't think you are struggling as
something-
much as you think you are.
No, I know, but it's something that if it's not really talked about within your life, it doesn't come easy to really understand or have that abstract thinking ability for.
Right.
So this is definitely something that's tapping into the brain of mine that I don't really know, like, the answers to. And I'm not used to not having the answers to things, but
so that
many people struggle with this.
I do, and I partake in plant medicine.
Yes.
Okay. So,
Yeah.
so I'm going. I genuinely don't believe, and this is my own thought, right? I don't believe that any human being or spiritual being is able to fully tap into their Christ conscious or their connectivity to their whole greaterness and that vast expansionism if they don't partake in plant medicine. It's like a big thing that I've noticed amongst the community that I speak with, and we all share the common thread. Can I explain it to you for a second? Do you mind?
Sure.
Okay. I want you to imagine this, okay? You almost go into this realm, and it asks you if you want experience, or you want to feel, or you want to be something different. And what it does is it unmakes you instantly, and you become like this micro fragment of the universe experiencing itself all 1 second at a time. And you almost become the observer of your own life. And as you're getting unmade, imagine feeling all the love, just for a second as I'm talking to you, all the love you've ever felt in your life, all of it. And then simultaneously imagine feeling all the love that you missed out on your entire life. And then imagine being broken and shattered and put back together an infinite amount of times over and over and over again, and unmade into something new, to where now you're connected to something different. And each time that I've done my plant medicinal journeys, I have gotten closer and closer and closer and closer to a higher level of source, creator, whatever it is, where it opens me up to understand that there is something so much greater than myself. So it's easier for me to have these types of conversations, right? Like I'm very open. I'm very much in
Right.
receive mode of having this. And I don't know unless people dabble into plant technology and what it has to offer you, because I believe that that's what God, whatever your definition of God is, has left behind for us to dabble in order to be interconnected to that energy source. As a psychologist, okay?
Here we go.
As a psychologist, hearing that from me, and again, put me being as close to you as I am aside, right? Okay? If somebody came in and said that to you, is that out of the realm of something that you'd even want to psychoanalyze, or is that something that you would just accept and be like, okay, I can kind of see that, but not understand it? Like from a psychologist standpoint, what does that sound like?
Well, so from a psychology standpoint, I'm not here to judge. So I'm unbiased. So if that's your perspective and if that's your story, then that's what it is. I'm here to learn your story and to open your eyes to different perspectives that you came to me for to help you.
Okay.
So I would never impose my, thought process on it. I would never impose how I feel. Hearing that, if that's your experience, then that's what it is. And you are valid, and that perspective has every right to, fully be believed. But
Not talk to me as a person and not a psychologist.
no, again, mushrooms or whatever we want to
We'll call it plant medicine.
But I feel like people need to know what we're talking about because it could be confusing.
There's also a different kind of plant medicines, though.
Okay.
Psilocybin.
Okay. So those forms of
Treatment.
or
Okay.
drugs, whatever you
Don't
want to
call
call
it-
it. Well, they still could be a drug to treat certain ailments. So like you would kind of consider it
Medicine.
medicine. Yes, medicine. Those medicines, sometimes I find just any medicine as a whole could have a stigma on it because it alters the brain chemistry. So on the other side, people could feel that, are you really working through your problems? Are you really seeing these higher powers, or is it more hallucination, and is it more delusion, and is it more a sense of you really escaping the ability to be able to process everything sober, as opposed to having your brain altered through this form of medicine.
May I ask a follow-up?
I'm not saying that's how I feel. I'm just saying I could see how other people may look at it that way. And there's a lot of research with, many different areas of medicine that are coming out, for the purpose of psychological purposes and healing. And it's very contradictory of the effects.
Are you aware that psilocybin was in cancer institutions back in the 1950s, I believe it was, and 60s, prior to Nixon banning it? Were you aware of that?
I did not know that.
You want to know what it was used for?
What was it used for?
PTSD. Do you want to know why?
For the relaxation. Okay.
It's not even just the relaxation. So when you take psilocybin and you do a whole brain scan, you can actually in live time see neuroplasticity and neurogenesis. So you can actually see faulty neurons and electrons and severed synaptic connections rewiring themselves and creating new neural pathways in the brain. And when you go through trauma, obviously you know this better than anybody as a psychologist, you develop those rigid peaks and valleys in the brain.
Right.
It's where you store all that shit that happened to you. This smooths those peaks and valleys out when you're on mushrooms. But my follow-up question would be then, how is it that not almost everyone that has ever taken plant medicine in any form, whether it's DMT, psilocybin, you have different types of opiates and toad and all different types of things, how have they all connected? She just poured Celsius on her phone. How has everyone seen the same thing or felt the same thing? How can that be explained unless there is actually something on that greater veil, something on that outside ethereal realm that we can't tap into if we're sober? Are you aware that the brain is able of accessing 11 different dimensions, which was proven from the Harvard Brain Institute?
Yeah, and to answer your question, so I do believe that there's not one thing on this earth naturally that can't be healed. through that medicine that we have. So I think that all man-made medicine, although it does do wonders, I think that there are natural and holistic forms that we have on this earth that have the ability to cure anything. So mushrooms being one of them is a natural substance, and that could it could very well, heal a lot of the neurotransmitters and synaptic connections within the brain. So I'm not, saying that that's not accurate at all.
I didn't think you were saying that.
But it is possible.
What I was asking you was, how can it be explained that everyone that's taken psilocybin has connected to what they would feel as source, a.k.a. God, a.k.a.
Like a different dimension.
A higher being, a.k.a. something of universal connected consciousness? How has everyone experienced the same feeling?
Well, I do believe in other dimensions, and there we have the ability to only see like a small percentage of what really the earth has.
What do you think is in the wait? You believe in like interdimensional stuff?
Yeah,
like what?
Yeah, like I definitely.
This is new for me. I didn't know she believed in that.
I definitely believe in like interdimensional.
Wait, what?
Yeah, like I believe that there could possibly be like in this time other events, other things occurring with other beings, or
so are you saying parallel universes?
Parallel and interdimensional.
Okay, so do you think that this is happening identically? Like I'm touching your shoulder right now somewhere else, identically at the same time?
Not identically. No, the interdimensional where, we can only see a certain percentage of what's on this earth, I believe. Where, how they say like animals such as cats or dogs, like their vision, they can see
pick up energy. They can pick up on energy.
Yeah, and frequencies.
Yes.
Like I definitely believe that. And I think that maybe when taking these mushrooms or these medicines, it could tap into a dimensional component where we're able to turn on some of those capabilities to see the other dimensions.
Well, that's what
if
happened.
That makes sense.
It does. So that's
explaining this.
No, you're explaining it perfectly. So do you mind if I unpack this a little bit?
Yeah.
So babies, for example, can access a full color spectrum because over time what happens is their eyes become conditioned to certain hues and certain ultraviolets and the typical light spectrum that we take.
Right.
Are you aware that when a baby's born that they can see all different colors of the spectrum, which is why they never look at you in the eye and they're looking around you because you're radiating an aura. Are you aware of that?
I actually did not know that.
Yeah, so it's crazy. So they can pick up on all different types of spectrums and things like that. Kids are more susceptible to seeing what than adults are?
Oh, ghosts.
Exactly.
Yeah.
Why is that? They're more open, right? Same thing with animals and the same thing with cats and dogs. Why do you think a cat's going to look somewhere where the back automatically goes into that hind stance and then the hairs stand up and everything? They're able to pick up on different energetic frequencies that when we become older, we're conditioned, one, to not believe in, or two, all the things that we eat, we drink, we see on a daily basis, our mind becomes numbed, completely numbed.
Well, I think we're cut off to a certain degree of like the energy frequencies that we could actually see and hear.
100%.
And feel.
And that's the beauty of plant technology and of plant medicine, because what it does, it lifts that veil. And when you close your eyes and you are in a whole different realm, and you can't explain where you are, and you're meeting entities, and you're free-flowing through all these different cosmic forces, but you so profoundly feel connected to something higher than yourself, greater than yourself, this immense amount of love that you can't even fathomably put into words. That I feel like every human at one point or another should experience.
And people are very hesitant to it, though, because there's a stigma behind, this medicine, and
that's
it's
only
not the
Nixon.
norm.
So that's because Nixon outlawed it. Because what happened was during the Vietnam War, there was the lowest enlistment ever in the history of war.
Right.
That was the whole make love, not war era, right? So he labeled it a class 1 felony. Now you have RFK, my dog, coming back in, and he's actually going to wind up legalizing the research back into the PTSD treatment of psilocybin because of the profound effects that it has on your neurochemistry, neurogenesis, neuroplasticity, synaptic connections, so on and so forth. I'm telling you, man.
Yeah.
Like, it changes lives. But going back to the whole bigger picture, right? That's what I feel connects most people to what God actually is.
Okay. So psilocybin.
Psilocybin is the key to dismantle religion, okay? To dismantle it top to bottom and to connect you to your natural source of awakening into your highest power, which is that you are God, I am God, we are connected to God, we are all one and the same, we are all interconnected.
Can you, just for the people, explain the difference between a how do you say it?
Spirituality?
Spirituality. I don't know why that's such a tongue twister.
Spiritual.
Spirituality versus religion.
Yeah, I think for most people that would be listening would be an easy question kind of to break it down. So I'm not conditioned and pigeonholed to follow a certain set of guys and a certain set of guidelines, right? You look at Catholicism, you look at Christianity, you look at Judaism, you look at Islam and all these different religious qualities. They have to follow a certain set of practices, conditioned thought patterns, and it's all fear-based. Religion is fear-based, the wrath of God, right? There's always punishment if you don't follow through. The whole point of spirituality is now that we are one, we can never be undone. So I'm always with my God. I'm always with myself. I'm always with my source. As long as I conduct myself in congruence with the way that I feel is going to be best suited for my betterment of my future. And again, I'm not perfect, but I know I'm not perfect. It's my ability to know that I'm not perfect, that I have desires, cravings, needs, wants. Whatever we are told is a sin, so what? I act in my own volition, but I always give my servitude, my thanks, my love, my abundance, my fulfillment to something greater than myself at the end of the day. And the things that I sin over, you can never punish me over. Being able to have a partner that I genuinely love before marriage, that fulfills me, that warms the soul, that makes me feel complete, how is that a sin? Because if we go back to the teachings of Yeshua, the whole thing is to love. It's to give yourself unconditionally. So that is the difference between spirituality and religion. Spirituality is an understanding that you are all good, all bad, all ugly, all beautiful, all light, all dark. You encompass everything. There's no punishment. It's all love. Religion is fear-based. And that's the issue that I have with religion. There's punishment-based from religion, right? And both faith and fear demand things that you cannot see, touch, smell, or see. So you have to choose wisely which one you're going to pick. I choose the faith of spirituality, which is always the path for self-acceptance. Never to lean on somebody else's notions and preconditioning patterns that pigeonhole me into telling me what I can and can't do in life. Does that make sense?
Yeah. So basically, on the spiritual end, you are practicing what you find is your fulfillment and how you can integrate it within your life to really, what am I trying to say here?
Conduct myself?
No. So to be spiritual is to just be guided in a way of knowing that you're a human being. You're going to be flawed. You're going to have good and bad times. You're going to do wrong at times. However, there's an acceptance there of you being who you are.
Correct.
But as long as you're giving, that compassion, that gratitude, that kindness to others and showing up for yourself along with the people around you, then that's okay.
So I will tell you very clearly, I practice the teachings of Yeshua. That is what my life is around.
Okay.
Gratitude.
Is this kind of like Buddhism?
No, Yeshua is Christ.
No, so, I know, but I'm saying like the Buddhist teachings are
if you look at where Jesus went or Yeshua went during his during that stint where he's not in the Bible, when I call my son back to Egypt, so he comes in at like 31 years old back into the Bible. Those years, there's tablets, there's documents, and again, it could be forged, but it says that Yeshua leaned into the teachings of reincarnation, that he leaned into the Dalai Lama, that he leaned into these Buddhist techniques. Yeah. So you look at the teachings of Yeshua, all he did was preach what human nature is supposed to encompass.
Right.
In a connectivity standpoint.
Right.
There was no fear. There was no wrath. That was superimposed.
There's no repercussions for you.
So that's the thing. So there's a theory of atonement. You look at Yeshua being sacrificed, which in and of itself bothers me, because a sacrifice means that we are doing this to appease our God. We'll slaughter a pig, we'll slaughter a lamb, we'll slaughter this child in order to give to God something so God is not mad at us. That is not why Jesus was killed. Jesus was killed because he went around telling people, you are God, which automatically went against everything that the church at the time, that the Roman Empire at the time was trying to control. He went around telling people, don't lead. Don't follow blindly. Lead by faith, not by sight, right? So follow, awaken. Those were the teachings of Yeshua.
And also think about the followings of the church.
Exactly.
And how discriminatory they were.
Of course.
And how, although it teaches healing, there was a lot of hurt within that in many communities.
Beyond.
And I think of just, women as a whole, and how throughout history we've been treated and scrutinized, and basically all our rights stripped of us.
So that's the one thing,
and that's
right?
what really bothers me.
So can I say something to you, which is also why I really used to love polytheistic religious-based practices, because, and not even polytheistic views, right? So if you go back into, because I used to be a self-proclaimed hedonist. So all those Norse and Viking, I lived for pleasure at the time, right? And when you look at these different polytheistic practices and you go back into early India traditions or those Norse and Viking traditions, women were treated as equals. They were allowed to go to war. They were not just home cooking meals and stuff. They had power in their culture. That's the one thing that I truly love, that for the women back in the day, they had stance, they had foundation. They were not just in this realm of serving their man and that was it. And now we have this disparaging distance between where you are and where I am.
Right.
That was the one thing about Christianity, Catholicism, and all these monotheistic views that really pushed me away from them for a while, because I said, if that's the case, fellow man is not just about men. It's about humanity. It's about the coalescence of you, me, and all in between. So that I get. Again, that's religion, right? If you go back to Yeshua, Yeshua said, love your neighbor, love you, love me. You are my equal. If you're a God and I'm a God and we are the son of God, that makes us all equal at the same table.
Right.
So that was my issue also, again, like you just said, with religion.
Yeah. And I think that it's easier to follow a spiritual realm just because it doesn't confine you and restrict you to these rules, right, that you have to follow. And if you don't, then you have to confess your sins, and you have to have some negative reinforcer that comes along with it to be able to really thrive within your.
It's fear-based.
It is.
It's fear.
The spiritual realm kind of reminds me of positive psychology a little bit, and how it's based on just connectedness.
Interesting.
And, living for that interpersonal relationship, living for the compassion, living for the kindness, living all of the practices of Jesus's teachings, and honestly, Buddhism. And to me, I feel that we should not be confined by any sort of guideline or rules, as long as you are following morality, as long as you're following your values and you treat people the way that you want to be treated, give your servitude to others in a way that will help them, do what is going to uplift others, and really be in this kind of thought process of give and compassion and love. I think that grace, generosity, because at the end of the day, us humans, we're flawed. We're always going to make mistakes, and there's always going to be times that we trip up. But to feel the pressure that sometimes religion may put on people may be why it gets steered away from outsiders.
I also don't even like, and this is just like a personal thing, right? I don't like saying the word flawed. I think we are exactly who we are and where we are at that point in time that we're supposed to be at, given the best tools that we have, right?
Right.
And I think when we look at it in a sense of we are flawed, that automatically puts a disparaging notion and conditioned thought process on what we're doing is in essence wrong. It may not serve us in that moment to be the best version of ourselves, but I try, when my clients come to me, it's the same thing with you. It's all that self-imposed, self-loathing, self-degrading, self-wallowing misery of I do this wrong, I do this wrong, I do this wrong. One of my main things that I do for myself and that I do with all my clients is let's relabel it. CBT, right? Cognitive behavioral therapy. So I try never to use the word flawed because I rather have people understand that we are perfect the way that we are, and we're conducting ourselves in the manner as to which we only know how to do right now, but there's always a place to be better and to grow and to move forward from.
Yeah.
Do you think after this conversation that you might have a desire to want to tap more into this for yourself?
Yeah, a lot of these questions honestly stunted me a bit. I didn't really know how to respond, and I didn't think that I was going to come into this really unsure of how to kind of answer certain questions.
Well, you also had no idea what we were talking
I had no
about
idea.
today and where I was going with it.
No, I know. And, you know, when I think about it now after this conversation, I feel that the purpose of life and living is to find a balance in peace, is to be able to appreciate like the mundane of life, because 95% of life is going to be mundane and you have to love it through all of that.
Why though? Why does it have to? Hold on. Can I interject here? Why is it mundane?
No, I'm saying there's not. You didn't let me finish.
I'm sorry.
What I'm saying
but I want to
is
go back into
95% of life is going to be mundane, where people are trying to chase this unachievable sense of emotional happiness, where we are going to go through a spectrum of the good, the bad, the flawed, sometimes the imperfect. And you know how I really truly believe is that loving yourself through every mistake, every action that you make, and knowing that there's always room to grow, and just appreciating the little things in life as opposed to trying to search for this huge happiness and exciting feeling, is really the purpose of what we're meant to.
Happiness is fleeting. So I think what you said was perfect about attaining peace. And the whole thing about that is we already have it. So there's this illusion that we always have to look out. Right? When meanwhile, this is an inward process. The peace is within. God is within. We are one wholeness. So there is that whole ability to feel what it is that you want to feel whenever you want to feel. You are your own feelings dealer, which is something that my mentor told me. And that has stuck with me forever. And going back to what you said about the mundane, I get it now. Yeah. People chase this feeling. But again, that's that illusion of looking from the outside. There's nothing to chase because by our divine birthright, it already belongs to us. All of those feelings of peace, harmony, grace, love, acceptance, gratitude, joy, content, abundance, fulfillment, all of that all lives and resides already within us. And the more that we follow this pursuit of chasing it, again, to me, it pulls us further away from God. It pulls us away further from source, connection, interpersonal connection, and that's not going to get anybody anywhere at the end of the day.
Right, and we are our own worst enemy, and how we think is how we're going to behave. So really being able to unlock that within your mind and live in a state of presence and know that life is going to at times be challenging, and it's also going to be beautiful, but we need to kind of find that equal balance of living in the present while also appreciating being on this earth. Because let's be real, it is even though there's billions of people on this earth, it's still extremely rare for us to even be here to begin with. So embracing that, just living, breathing, regardless of what you believe in, I mean, it's insane to even be here if you really think about it.
Oh my God.
And like what we are and how, we go about everything. So I don't know. That's kind of my 2 cents on everything.
The odds of us being born are 1 in 400 trillion.
I know. And I didn't know that.
We are a legitimate miracle to be here.
Yeah.
And the problem is again, people live in this fear-based conceived notion, right? Not realizing that fear in its most insidious form does not rob you of death. It does not rob you from something negative happening. It robs you from living. And I love that you said to live presently. We treat tomorrow like it's an inevitability to come, not realizing that tomorrow is never promised. And we spend so much of our day currently living in that mundane chase that it pulls us out of our ability to actually appreciate what's directly under our nose, which again, already belongs to us. All that love, all that joy, all of what we already have internally is already there. And I think that's so important for people to understand.
Yeah, definitely.
Quick question.
Yeah.
Do you believe dogs are in heaven with you?
Yeah,
Okay.
And what about cats?
No.
Okay, I love cats. So
Absolutely not.
I definitely think cats.
They didn't use dogs to guard the pyramids. They used cats because they're
cats
vile,
were all
vicious
of
creatures.
the Egyptian.
They're considered gods.
yeah.
I understand. Yeah.
Yeah.
I understand, but I hate cats more than anything. So if you have a pet monkey, do they go up also?
They all do.
So every animal.
Every animal. Why are we
Everything.
leaving one behind?
Insects?
Probably, but I could do without them.
Okay. So there's that.